Okay, on to finishing the pummel. This will be the last part of this pummel series, I guess, if you could call it that. And we're going to design things a little different. So as you know, our pummel now is solid. It's not a cap like on the toy. We've in part 1, 2, and 3, we did the threads, we did the pummel, did the ring to fit over the lightsaber, and put it all together. Now we want to complete it. So the next step in completing is building these little squares that come out of here. Now on the toy printed laser, on the toy printed lightsaber, they're just glued on. So these could be easily knocked off. If you hit these hard, they're going to come off. It's just super glue, right? So since this is solid, the design idea is to make these go into the pummel farther to give it some strength. We'll still glue them in there so they don't slide out, but it'll give it some strength by going into the pummel and etc. Also, remember we scaled this from, I think this was 36 to 50. So we want to scale these, or actually I think this is 45 to 50. Anyway, 42. Anyway, we want to scale these up a little bit. So I measured these. These are 5 millimeter by 5 millimeter, and they stick out 5 millimeter. So what I'm going to do is we're going to make these 6 millimeter by 6 millimeter and make it stick out 6 millimeter. And that way it scales because we scaled this up. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of keep it like that. I may also do some rounding of these edges because, this is going to be on your lightsaber, and we don't want to hit this and get nicked, right? So might round some of this stuff. We'll see as we do the design. Anyway, that's the idea. Let's get started. Okay, on to completing our final pummel. Now, in the first segment of this video, I told you that these were 5 by 5. They're not. They're 9 by 9. My mistake. And they stuck out 5 millimeters. I don't want to change how far they stick out, but I do want to scale it up. So I'm going to just go 10 by 10. All right. Now, there's 5 indents total. Is it 5? 1, 2, 3. I think it's 6. 6 indents total. Yeah. So that means that there's in a 360-degree rotation, there's 3 of these. If you were to look at this as a bar going through, there'd be 1, 2, 3. Whoops. So what we want to do is, let's get this out of the way, is we're going to do a trick. I call it a trick, but we're going to do this to make it real simple to do this. So we're going to put a solid on here. Now remember, the diameter was 50, and we want the parts to stick out 5 millimeter on each side. So the first thing we're going to do is make the length. So 50 plus 5 on each side is 60 millimeter. All right, then we said we want to make this 10 and 10. And there's our first bar. And, if we were to put this through here, you'd see that it would go right through and stick out 5 millimeters on each side. All right, great. Now, I said I kind of wanted to round this, so let's take advantage of some of the tools Tinkercad has. So let's put our steps up so it's smooth, and then we'll just start to bevel this guy. Let's see what it looks like. That's pretty good. Now, the way the bevel works is it gradually goes back. We don't want to bevel it back into our pummel, so we don't really want more than about 5 millimeters. If you see, if I do this, it becomes like a pill shape, right? So we want to do it just enough so we get a nice gradual bevel, but it isn't too deep into the pummel, leaving a gap. I think that'll do it, and you see it did it on both ends, so I think that's good enough. That gives us a little bit of a rounded edge on that. Okay, so now we need to duplicate these and rotate them. So let's break out Mr. Calculator, even though you really shouldn't need it. 360 degrees divided by 3 bars. That means we need to rotate each part 120 degrees. All right? So we're going to take this, we're going to hit the duplicate button, and I do it that way now instead of hitting Control-C, Control-V, because it puts it right on top of the other one. That way we get perfect rotation. So you need to deselect and then select, so you're only selecting one of them. When you duplicate, both are actually selected. So if you don't do that, you'll wonder what happened to your part. Unselect it, select one, that way you've got one. Now we're going to come over here to rotate, and we're going to rotate 120 degrees. And there we have it. All right, now we're going to select this part. We're going to duplicate again. We're going to select one of them. And once again, we're going to rotate 120 degrees. And look at that. We've now made this perfectly symmetrical. All right, I'm going to group all these. And you'll see if we bring our pummel in, and I'll just go ahead and drop it below the build plate for now. And then we do a center. Bingo. All evenly placed around. Not a lot of work doing one by one and trying to get it evenly placed. And we've got our decoration on our pummel. All right, so I'm just going to undo, get the pummel back over there. All right, so now we've got this. So this is actually going to be our part. I'm going to unzoom. So I'm actually going to put this to the side, but I need a duplicate of it. Why? Because we need to make holes in the in the pummel. Actually, we're not done with our part. Pardon me. We would never be able to get these parts into the solid pummel. So what we need to do now is, let's get another circle out. Actually, I'm going to make it a hole. And we need to separate them. So how far do we want them to stick in the pummel? First, let's bring up the sides and put it in here. And obviously, we need it bigger. Want it to stick into the pummel a little bit, but not too far. All right, let's go ahead and we can lower that a little bit. Don't need all that. Okay, let's center these parts and combine. Now let's see how far they do stick into the pummel. Wait for it to finish. The more and more stuff you get on your build plate, the longer some of these commands take. So that looks pretty good. Let's see how far it would stick into the pummel. So let's center. Or align. Okay, drop the pummel down. Get an idea. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the pummel transparent so I can see how far they stick into the pummel. That's quite a distance. That should be pretty secure. Could have made it maybe a little bit bigger and have them not stick in so far, print less material. Tell you what, let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to select this part again. We're going to hit ungroup. Let's see, how big is our circle now? It's 32. Let's make this 34 by 34. Okay, center, align, like so, group. Again, more stuff you do on the build plate. That's why it's, in my opinion, it's better to do piece by piece on different build plates so you're not slowing yourself down waiting for things to complete. So let's go ahead and align. And let's have a look. Yeah, I could keep from going in a little farther, but I think this is going to work out. I think this is going to be fine. It's not that much plastic for those little parts, but you could make that circle even smaller so that they go in, but we're going to make them secure, all right? So we got our pummel. We can go ahead and make that a solid again. We've got our part, which is all combined, so we can stick that aside. Now, I need a copy of this because now we got to make holes in the pummel, right? So let's copy it, paste it. This will become a hole. Now here's the deal. Once again, when you're 3D printing things, you may get a little bit oversized here or a little bit undersized on the hole, and then your part won't fit in the hole. So what you want to do is increase this a little bit, just a little bit. So if we increase it up, will be good, but if we increase it to the side, these will become longer, etc., and we won't get what we want. We need to increase the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ungroup, and move our hole. Whoops. Come on. Move our hole out of the way. Ungroup. Guess I didn't have that ungrouped. Move our hole out of the way. Then we're going to ungroup each of these bars. We're going to ungroup this whole thing and delete these bars. All right. Then we're going to unbevel this because we don't need the holes to be beveled. All right. And we're going to make these slightly larger. So we're going to make this 10 point. Should I do 1? Let's do 10.1. Length doesn't change. We got to make the height 10.1. And we're going to repeat the operation we did before. Again, we don't need them beveled, so we're going to hit duplicate, select one, rotate 120. Okay. Duplicate, select one, rotate 120, combine, and merge our hole back in by aligning. That way the dimensions are the same. And then we combine again, and we make this a hole that's now slightly larger than our parts by 0.1. Okay, now we need to put them in the pummel. Let me get home here. So we're going to take our pummel and we're going to lower it down and split the difference between the bevels. First, let's align. Okay, we're all aligned. But as you see, we're sitting at the bottom. So now what we want to do is we want to raise our pummel or lower our pummel and basically split the difference. I'm just going to eyeball this. You want to calculate it out, the distance between here. We need to go down a little bit more. Actually, why am I? Let me recenter here. So we need to go down a little bit more, I think. Up a little bit. I don't know, it looks pretty good to me. It looks pretty good to you. I think down one click. So where are we at? 14.98. Just make it 15, see what that does. Oops. We're minus 14.98, so we want minus 15. Yeah, that moved it down a little bit. That looks pretty even to me. So here we go. We once again do this. We combine. And let's recenter, re-level on our build plate. And there's our finished pummel and our finished parts. As you see, there's a back wall, so when they go in, they'll glue right in. As you see, because we did this in circles, these parts are curved. And we know inside here, this is going to be curved. If we make this a hollow so we can x-ray view it, you can see these are curved. So I can literally take that part and put it in here. Now, once again, I always say test what you're doing. Pardon me, test what you're doing before you print the whole thing, right? So how do we test that? Well, we'd have to make a little test part to do it, which we can do. I'm going to put the pummel to the side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to ungroup. I'm going to ungroup again. And I'm going to copy this, one of these out. Okay. And then we'll just regroup all this again so we don't get lost. Actually, I grabbed the wrong one. I want it. Ungroup. Alright, that's what I wanted, so we'll make a copy. Now we'll regroup. Pardon me. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a block. I'm going to slice this short, so since we just need the little part, Okay. This is just a test fit. To do a test fit, we're going to group. Now we got a part we're going to print. And then for testing this, we said we made the, let me ungroup this. We said we made these bars. Ungroup that again. We made these bars. Ungroup. Recenter here. We said he made these bars. Come on, why can't I ungroup? Ungroup. Nope, didn't want that. So I should be able to grab one of these. We said we made these bars a little bigger to make the holes bigger, right? So I'm going to grab one of those. I'm going to hit copy and hit V. Pull that out. Okay, let's regroup all this. Actually, we need to make this hollow again. So, got to do this the hard way. Group should have made a copy before messing with it. It's one thing about making a copy. Okay, those are grouped. We need to make that a whole. Must be still grouping. Didn't get that grouped. So this, pardon me. Bear with, group. Select, make it a whole. What the heck's going on here? Did I ungroup? I must have ungrouped. All right. I'm working too fast and I'm getting frustrated. Group. Okay, let's wait for it to finish. That's what I think's happening. I'm going too fast. And that's not grouped. Unbelievable. Group. There, I see them all glowing. They look like they're all selected this time. Yeah, all right. And now we make that a whole. I hit ungroup, hit back. That's what happened. Sorry, guys, I'm getting punchy here. We make it a whole, then we group it with the Pummel, and we leave our Pummel alone next time we make a copy. Anyway, so where I was going was we now have this part that's an exact copy of that, and we have this hole. Let's make it a hole. So now we're going to grab a solid, and we're going to take this, and we're going to rotate this upright. Okay, put it in the center of the block, and then we're just making a little part we can test print, right? Bring this up so it's not on the build plate. Doesn't need to be that long. And how big is our square? Don't want to print too much plastic. That's good for a test print. All right, so then we're going to group. So we see it's got a bottom on it. We have our part. And we're going to export both of these and do a test print to make sure this fits in that hole that we made as 10 millimeter, right? I could have, instead of ungrouping this, I could have just made it 10.1, 10.1. But what the heck, we used the parts we used. So I'm going to export these, and we're going to come back and make sure they fit. Okay, as always, I say print a test part before printing the whole thing and then be discouraged. So this was the one where the hole is 10.1 and it's way too loose. Well, I wouldn't say way too loose. Put it this way, it would work, but it's loose, all right? And we want a good fit, make those parts glue in easy. This one, I just went ahead, I said, the heck with it. I made the hole 10. I didn't add anything. And it turns out, because my printer's dimensionally correct, this actually is a good fit. It slides in and out, but doesn't wobble. So, bottom line is we're going to go back and we're going to make the holes 10 millimeter. Now, maybe it's because I printed it this way instead of this way. But here's the deal. If I print the Pummel and these are too big, I can always downscale these. It's a simple print. Whereas the Pummel's a much larger print and we wouldn't want to waste it. So, with that said, let's go back into CAD, fix things up, and then finish the Pummel. Okay, so real quick, before we print this, I've got the black filament loaded. I think I'm going to do supports in here. Because remember, the part's going to go in, so I don't care what the hole looks like. But if you look, when I get on the first top layer above those holes. The printer's going to print the lines this way. I think it'll do the rim first though. Yeah, I still think I can get away without supports in there. Let me see what the print head does. So this little row down here is nice. You can see what the print head's going to do, right? So we're going to go to the next layer, 126, and we're going to watch what the print head does. I think it's going to do the perimeter. Yeah, it does the perimeters first, the inner infill, and then it's going to do the top layers. And even though it's 10 millimeter by whatever depth I've got there, it looks like it's going to be fine. Yeah, I can get away without supports in there. Hate to dig them out anyway. All right, again, we try to do this without supports, but this is why you always want to load your part and inspect these things to determine, do you need supports? How big is the gap you're trying to bridge? Is there anything funny inside the model that's going to print weird or cause it to mess up? And we are looking good now. So anyway, let's get these printed and take a look at the final Pummel. Okay, so real quick before we finish off the Pummel, I want to show you something. So when I first went to print these Pummel spikes, I guess you could call them, I just took the 5, and I'll show you in CAD and Cura. I just took the 5 and printed them. Well, I forgot that I tapered the ends, and so here's what that did. On the build plate side, this was not touching the build plate, so we got this nasty looking edge. And then of course on the top side, we didn't get the cleanest edge either because it's the top layer, right? And it's also beveled. So what I did is, instead of printing all 5 flat on the build plate and slicing it, what I did is I cut them all out, made one, rotated it in Cura so that the end, this end, was on the printer's build plate, and this was the top surface, which gets hidden inside the Pummel. And if you look, we've got some really clean looking sides. So things don't always translate from CAD to the slicer to printing without you being extra careful to realize how you're printing them. Otherwise you could wind up with not good looking parts. So I'm going to show you what I did real quick in CAD and then in Cura, and then we'll finish off the Pummel. Okay, so what I did was, as you know, I had all 5 of these, and I just exported all 5 and put them on the build plate, on the slicer build plate. As you see, if you look at the bottom where it's red, that is not going to be touching the build plate, and that's when I showed in the example that it looked ugly. And again, these are now the top layers, and we want these sides all around to look good. So the best way to do that is, what I did is I blocked off all the others, leaving one. Then you do a combine, and that eliminates them. And then you just export this one, right? So you export it, and you're done. So I'm going to clear the build plate here. So now I like to, when I'm going to print a part, you know, I could rotate this face down in the CAD, but I want to keep my original parts, right, in case I want to do something else. So in Cura, I like to rotate in Cura. I find it the best way. So we're going to import the single one now. And as you see, it's still on its side, and it's still got an area not touching the build plate that will make it look ugly. So basically, you just grab it, go into rotation, grab the proper access, and this is why I like doing it, because it kind of then drops flat on the build plate. As you can see, we're all blue here now. And basically, there's 2 ways to do this. Now, if you want the best surface possible, you want to print these one at a time. But you could come in here, select it, and go up here to, let me drop this down, go up here to edit, and multiply selected, and we want 5 more, and click OK. But let me show you what happens here. So let me move this back up. When I slice this, I've also got in my Cura under showing all the lines, prepare preview, here we go. Showing all the lines, I'm showing where the travels, meaning we're not putting down filament, but how the head travels. And in preview, if you look, see all these blue lines? This is the head finishing off somewhere here and then transitioning across here. You can get stringing, and it can put little marks on your print where the head traveled over to this other part. So this is why I like doing one at a time. Yes, it's slower than doing all 5, but if you want the best possible surfaces, it's better to eliminate all those moves between parts that can cause zits or little ticks on your print. All right, so just me, I like doing one at a time, so I would slice this and I would send it to the printer 6 times, and we're going to get a nice part as I showed. All right, so basically that's it, and we're going to print these final spikes and take a look at the pummel. All I got to say is, wow, that came out great. It fits like a glove, screws on there perfectly. Look at the pummel spikes. They're great looking, really printed well. The pummel itself printed well. As always, you've got a Z seam. On black, it's not usually that much, but it just came out great. I mean, the print came out great. It printed great, in my opinion, and it just looked really good. So that's the first start at the skinning. We got the pummel done. Reason I did the bottom first is I'm going to move up. Again, we're going to make these in pieces, right? And so we want to start from one end and wind up where we want to go, mainly because this screws on and it'll support keeping the other skins from sliding off the saber without having to screw things in or glue things, right? So it can all be easily removed. Anyway, I thought this pummel came out great. Looks great to me. What do you guys think? And we'll continue skinning.